We are back for another deep dive into a major Walking Dead character. This week we're covering the hardened ginger badass you'd hate to piss off at a bar and human quote machine, Sergeant Abraham Ford.
Mother dick.
So grab your M16, run a comb through that handlebar mustache, and pass the biz quick. I'm Woody Tondorf, and this is I See Dead People. Hooah! So who is Abraham? I will pause for all of you to write your answers in the comments. Honestly, a lot of you take this question very seriously. Okay, Abraham's the former US Army sergeant from Houston, Texas with a dark past. Like, really dark. Like the German Netflix show Dark. Before the apocalypse in both the comics and the show, Abraham was a family man with a wife and 2 kids. In the comics, his wife is named Beth, while in the show, it's Ellen, probably so fans of the show don't get confused. Once the apocalypse kicks off, Abraham and his family hole up with some quote-unquote friends at a grocery store. It's there his quote-unquote friends rape his wife, and in the comics, also his daughter. Holy shit, really? So naturally, Abraham kills the shit out of those guys in a murderous rage. Unfortunately, this display of brutality terrifies them, so Abraham's family runs away. After a desperate search, Abraham discovers his wife and kids consumed by walkers on the road. I told you that this was dark. This nearly drives him to suicide until he runs into Eugene, a supposed scientist who needs protection and escort to DC to help find a cure. Abraham, who literally has nothing left to live for, joins him along with other survivors like Rosita,
Stephanie, Warren, Pam, Rex,
and other off-screen characters who don't matter, kind of like Legolas in Lord of the Rings movies. During their travels, Abraham and Rosita form a romantic relationship, and now you know the backstory. On to the source material. We first meet Abraham in issue 53 of the Walking Dead comics, which came out in 2008, which seems like 8 lifetimes ago. On the road, he, Eugene, and Rosita stop at Herschel's farm for supplies, which is where they get held up at gunpoint by Andrea. After some scuttlebutt, Abraham convinces Rick and the gang to head to DC with them. What's the worst that could happen? Well... During one of their first nights on the road, the gang discovers Maggie has hung herself in the woods after losing her brother and father. Holy shit, I forgot about that too. Oh my god, do I need to read the comics again? Abraham assumes she's dead and tries to shoot her to prevent reanimation, but Glenn and Rick quickly intervene. Thankfully, Maggie is not dead and springs to life, causing Abraham to be in the doghouse with Rick. Coincidentally, that will be one of the new Scott Gimple spin-offs coming in 2027. I'm kidding. We will all be long dead by then. Shortly after, Abraham and Carl accompany Rick to his hometown of Cynthiana to grab weapons. On the trip there, they get attacked by a group of bandits who try to rape Carl. Rick bites one of the bandits' necks like Bill Compton in True Blood, while Abe helps slaughter the others. Hit him with the Step Brothers!
Did we just become best friends? Yep!
The next day, they grab the guns in Cynthiana and serendipitously run into Morgan. He's not as clear as his show counterpart, but he definitely has been keeping his undead son Dwayne alive as a pet. Rick tells him to kill the boy for good, but Morgan secretly frees him from his shackles and bounces. Some say Dwayne later became mayor and started a family. On their way to DC, they learn that Eugene was lying about the cure. He's not a scientist, he's a high school science teacher. Abe goes full Goblet of Fire Dumbledore on him until Rick intervenes. A little later, they run into a kind-looking man named Aaron who just wants to talk. Rick agrees, and by that we mean he knocks him unconscious, ties him up, and takes him back to the group. But when walkers attack, Glenn cuts Aaron free, and they all head towards Alexandria. After saving some folks on the road, Abraham and the others settle into the safe zone and get interviewed by Douglas, who is the Deanna of the comics, who takes one look at Abraham's sweaty biceps and assigns him construction, which is not fair. Everybody knows that Abraham worked in IT. The gang begins adjusting to normal life in Alexandria.
Boy, it sure is a hot one today, huh?
Abraham saves his construction buddies from a walker attack, proving to them, and his new crush Holly, that he's way more capable than they are. After some light drama in town, that is, Douglas's wife Regina getting murdered by Pete, and Abraham having to kill invading scavengers, a horde closes in. Abraham saves his new friends, but there are just too many, like Medusa heads, or breadsticks at Olive Garden. Rick gives everyone their marching orders, a lot of residents die, including Jesse, Ron, Douglas, and Carl's Eye, but the characters who matter survive. Later, Abraham is forced out of his home when Rosita finds out he was cheating on her with Holly, to which he justifies by saying she isn't the only woman left in the world. Cool? During a supply mission, he and Michonne run into a mysterious stranger named Paul Monroe, aka Jesus! When Rick arrives, Jesus explains he just wants to establish trade between their community and Hilltop. Rick agrees, knocks him unconscious, ties him up, and takes him back to the group. While Rick and the gang visit Hilltop, Abraham and Eugene search for a place to make ammunition while saviors secretly follow them. Before they return home, Abraham is shot through the back of the head with a crossbow bolt by a savior named Dwight. Like a badass, he manages to get out this one final line before dying. Rick and the others find him later getting consumed by walkers, so they carry him back to be buried.
Let's chew up some asphalt.
Now on to the television program, which is ostensibly why you all are here. We first meet Michael Cudlitz' Abraham back in 2014 with Season 4, Episode 10's Inmates. Abraham, Eugene, and Rosita show up in a military truck to help Glenn and Tara fight off walkers. On the road, Glenn wakes up and tries to leave, but Abraham explains it's totally cool. This guy Eugene says he has the cure, and I'm betting my entire goddamn life that the guy who talks in all these big words for big long sentences is probably not lying. Glenn doesn't care about no cure mumbo jumbo, he has a Maggie to find. They eventually find Maggie's note to Glenn on a Terminus map and decide to make a detour. It doesn't take long before they all reunite and arrive at Terminus, where they're captured in a boxcar, and Rick tries really hard not to say the F word.
They're fucking with the wrong people.
Thanks to Carol's non-gender reveal-related pyrotechnics, they fight their way out and escape. In the woods, they encounter Father Gabriel and stay the night at his church, which is when Abraham gives this charming toast.
And we get Eugene to Washington, and he will make the dead die, and the living will have this world again. And that is not a bad takeaway for a little road trip.
But since nice things don't last in the show, Bob gets his leg eaten, and they have to deal with Gareth and cannibals. After brutally massacring them, the gang splits up. On the road, Abraham's bus breaks down, so they hole up in a library where he and Rosita cozy up in the historical friction section and try to block out the sound of Eugene whacking his meat like Guy Ramsey. They later find a fire truck and use the hose to kill walkers. See, Fear the Walking Dead doesn't get all the fun, but they do have none of the audience. When that truck breaks down and the walkers close in, Eugene finally confesses he is not a brilliant scientist and he made up that whole cure thing. Abraham knocks him out harder than Johnny and Cobra Kai until Rosita intervenes. They meet up with Michonne and arrive at Grady Memorial just in time to see Daryl carrying Beth's body out. Fun reunion. Later, Abraham bonds with Sasha over walker killing and dog meat. The gang then holes up in a barn as a giant tornado appears. I mean, why not? After they somehow survive, a man who sounds just like the Red Skull in Avengers Endgame appears talking about a safe zone. In Alexandria, Abraham gets interrogated by the leader, gets to live with Rosita in their own house, and is assigned to the construction crew. The gang begins adjusting to normal life in Alexandria.
Hot one today, huh?
Yeah!
Like the comics, Abe and his crew get attacked at the construction site by walkers, Tobin almost lets his woman die, and Abe saves the day.
And pull the cobwebs out of your ass and move!
Afterwards, Abraham finally makes amends with Eugene, and then helps pin Pete down after he kills Reg, leading to Rick killing Pete. That counts as an assist in your fantasy Walking Dead leagues, just FYI. With walkers threatening the town, Abe and Sasha help Rick with a distraction plan. Abe even risks his life to kill some walkers.
I'm just grabbing the bull by the nutsack.
Abraham and Sasha get separated from the group, get attacked by strangers, and hole up in an office building. Thankfully, the military was nice enough to leave some cigars and rocket launchers lying around. Abe and Sasha meet up with Daryl, but get stopped by this Sons of Anarchy cosplay group that claims half their stuff belongs to Negan now. Daryl disagrees. That's called Chekhov's gun, motherfuckers. Back in town, Rosita gives Abraham a necklace made out of a broken taillight and tells him to prove his love for her in the shower. Once Jesus shows up, Abe joins Rick and the gang on the journey to Hilltop. On the way, Abe finally asks Glenn the age-old question.
When you were pouring the Bisquick, you trying to make pancakes?
A line so iconic, people still send Michael Cutlett's pancake mix. Anyways, fans are weird, and things quickly go to shit at Hilltop as their leader Gregory almost dies. After the dust settles and they return to Alexandria, Abe decides to leave Rosita.
When I first met you, I thought you were the last woman on Earth. You're not.
Dude, did you read the comics? This is just not cool. To get on Hilltop's good side, Abraham and the gang infiltrate a Savior satellite base where they ruthlessly murder everyone who dared to sleep in an apocalypse. My feelings on this are well documented. All your heroes are monsters. Abraham and Eugene later find a place to manufacture ammunition. During a walker scuffle, Eugene gets captured by a savior named Dwight. What's a captured Eugene to do? Well, bite Dwight in the dick, of course. They miraculously escape, well, except for Denise, who gets Abraham's comic death. In the infirmary, Abraham is up to his usual quotable self.
You know how to bite a dick, Eugene.
And afterwards goes to Sasha's house with 2 express tickets to Pound Town. A little later, Abraham and the others get stopped on the road by savior blockades. Abe then marks himself for death by telling Sasha he's ready to bring new life into the world. You never make plans in a season finale, God! After encountering more roadblocks,
Bitch nuts.
the gang splits up and you know what happens next. A whistle party! They all get captured by the Saviors and put on their knees, which is when Negan exits the RV like the Bear Jew in Inglourious Bastards. Thanks to the comics, we know Glenn's a goner, so Abraham's safe, right? Wrong! Abraham loses Negan's eeny miny mo game and gets bludgeoned to death by Negan's bat Lucille.
My nuts.
You know, he's got the facial hair of a trucker and the dick of Barney from How I Met Your Mother, but what a fucking badass. Abe literally takes the beating like a champ, and later, because Daryl can't keep his shit together, Glenn suffers the same gruesome fate. So ending 2 beloved characters and roughly 20% of the show's audience. Following the controversial Season 7 premiere, Abraham appeared in a what could have been dinner hallucination, a Sasha near-death hallucination, and a Michonne what if she was a savior final episode hallucination. Basically, if a character's about to die or leave the show, you take some shrooms and you wait for Abraham to show up. Even though our favorite/only Ginger is dead in the show, Michael Cudlitz is still around to direct. He helmed Season 9's Stradivarius, Season 10's Ghosts, and an episode of the new series The Walking Dead World Beyond, which is actually really good. As we always say at the end of these, Abraham has inspired numerous cosplays, action figures, and handlebar mustaches. Also, the man looks great in a hammock. And that wraps up this week's episode of I See Dead People. What are your favorite Abraham moments? Would you rather die by an arrow to the eye or a bat to the head? And when you were pouring the Bisquick, were you trying to make pancakes? Tell us in the comments, like and subscribe to Skybound, and check out our Walking Dead podcast, Talk Dead to Me. I'm Woody Tondorf, and we'll see you next time.